Welcome to the lecture on the stages of writers. This is basically something that I put together a long time ago. It caused a lot of controversy when I first presented it. I presented it in a slightly different way, but to a group that I presented it to, and it caused unbelievable issues. But it has turned out to be, over the years, a very good way for writers to measure where they're going and why they want to go somewhere, and where even is what's the next step. And that's why it's called stages. Basically, steps would be another way, steps of being a writer. The point of this, and the entire point of this, is to try to help writers get out of the necessary goals of inside of writing itself. Oh, I want to finish my new novel. Oh, I want to finish my short story. And those are goals, and they're great goals, and there's nothing wrong with them, and they're doable, and there's all kinds of ways of doing them. But where are you going in general as a writer? Well, I want to make $1 million. Well, that doesn't help anybody, because you just don't know where we're going. When something like that's just a dream. That's not a goal. It's an attainable thing in writing. I mean, lots and lots, thousands and thousands and thousands of writers make far more than $1 million. So it's an attainable thing, but it is not something that you can actually look at and say, okay, where am I as a writer? How do I get better as a writer? How can I keep improving my craft, and where am I even heading? A lot of writers, and I'll talk about it in these upcoming videos here, they stop. They just get to a place and say, oh, I know enough now, and they just keep writing, and eventually their careers go away. And because learning is critical in this profession. It's everything. Writing itself does not stay stagnant. It continues on. The writing that readers like continually morphs. And I'm not talking about which genre to write in or anything silly like that. I'm talking about the craft of writing. If you looked at the craft of writing 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago, or even 30 years ago, some of these things are extremely dated, and they're not necessarily dated by the details in the work. They're dated by how the writer wrote, and the craft involved. And so this is one of those places where you can never learn it all. That's why I'm still here at my age. I am still just constantly trying to learn, constantly trying to get better, constantly trying to practice new things and everything else. This Stages of Writers will help, I hope, help you understand the place that you are at. And sometimes that's anger making. That's what caused the problem first time I tried to present this. And secondarily, how you can get to the next stage. And I'm going to talk about a lot of that here as to how you move up. I've broken it down into 4 stages. Now, understand, this is just me. This is something that I've come up with. And I'm sure there are other writers out there who have come up with different ways of approaching this and different markers along the way. But this is the way that works for me, and I will explain why and how I came around to it, because as a professional poker player. And again, the definition of a professional poker player is a person who makes their living playing poker. Well, right now I am not a professional poker player because I make my living writing. And so, it's just a matter of, I'm a semi-professional poker player. But there have been times in my life where I've been a professional card player. And poker has a way of showing these 4 steps incredibly clearly. Even if you don't know poker, you can understand. But I'm going to use that as sort of an example and then move it into writing and talk about all the different ways in writing that this appears in each stage and what it is about in each stage. So don't panic if you don't know poker. It's okay. I will explain it as I go, what little bit you're going to need to know. And otherwise, it's going to kind of have a joint. But there are other places in the arts that this works. Also, in music has different stages of musicians, and like that. So it depends on where you're at, but you can extrapolate it maybe into a place that you're a little more familiar with. But I will try to be very clear here, so that when you get to the end of this lecture, you'll have an idea of, number one, approximately in what area, what stage, and what part of the stage you fit in. And number two, how to, keep working on the craft and what you need to work on to try to move up to the next stage. And so it's a never-ending process, and it's actually a lot of fun. These continuing to work upward. I mean, I look at someone like Stephen King, and I just look at it and go, how does he do what he does? How do some of these writers do what they do? Well, until I can do what they do comfortably, easily, I don't feel like I've learned enough yet. And so that's my attitude, and I'll show you some of the stages here. So hang on, it'll be an interesting lecture. It may make you angry along the way. If it happens and you do get angry, take a deep breath, stop, and maybe back up a little bit, maybe come at it again, maybe at a different afternoon or something with a little bit of more like, okay, he's not being personal to me, he's not being negative to me, he's just telling it like it is. And again, this is all mine, all my opinion. So, you can ignore it if you want, and some people will. Every writer's different, but we all fall into these stages. I've never seen a writer outside of them. Back in a minute.